Hello, friends. Last time we spoke, I told you the story of how undiagnosed ADHD nearly ruined my life. But then a funny thing happened. You see, I got the diagnosis, and with the diagnosis came a set of tools and knowledge that not only helped me understand the slipping failure of the last 18 years of my life, but also gave me the means to change that, to build my life back up, to get unstuck in life. And I was very much stuck at the time. You see, I weighed nearly 600 pounds. I was in pain and slowly eating myself to death. I was hopelessly addicted to video games, spent every waking minute that I could in gaming worlds, and was deeply doing the best I could to escape reality. 4 years later, I've lost over 200 pounds and have turned that gaming addiction into a creative hobby that brings me in front of you today, and a lot more besides. What I want to do today is not tell you either of those stories. We'll be doing that soon, but instead share with you the key insights I gained from looking into ADHD that helped me make this momentous change. Now, if you're thinking to yourself that I don't have ADHD, it doesn't apply to me, I'm just going to click off, I want to take a moment to try to convince you otherwise. You see, we all get stuck in life. We all have issues taking our motivations and turning them into action. And this is what ADHD is a disorder of. It is an intention deficit disorder. What it means is that far from being someone who can't pay attention in class and is a bit of a space cadet, like we all seem to think ADHD is, what it actually is something that prevents us from making progress on our goals over time. And that is something I think almost everyone can relate to. Here are the four main lessons I learned from conquering ADHD that helped me take on life. Lesson one: abandon motivation and embrace structure. Now, I'm not here to suggest that motivation is useless, because it's not. But what I am going to suggest is that it's not enough to change your life. And what's more, I think you know this. To illustrate, let me introduce you to two fictional characters, okay? Michael Motivation and Susie Structure. They're both trying to lose some weight and they're going to try to eat lunch salads instead of their traditional junk that they go out to get when they're at work during the week. Two different approaches for each of these folks. Michael decides to stake out a salad restaurant, a place that will serve him a great salad he's really excited about. He's going to go there every day, order that salad, and feel great. Cool. What does Susie do? Susie decides to make her salads over the weekend at home. She goes shopping, puts them together herself the way she likes them, and then during the week she just brings them in and eats them. She likes to keep things simple during the week. Let's see who's more successful in following their intention, their goal of losing weight by eating salads instead of junk. Monday rolls around, normal day at work, lunchtime. Susie whips out her salad, eats it, feels great. Michael goes to the salad restaurant he planned to go to, orders his salad, eats it, also feels great. Big check. Good job, guys. Tuesday. Something about Tuesdays, isn't there? Tuesday, things start to go a little south for their team at work. Say a high profile customer blows up and causes a bunch of stress to the team. Oh, just one of those days, you know? But lunchtime rolls around. Susie whips out her salad, eats it, feels great. Michael goes out for lunch like he plans to usually and goes with all the stress of the morning and just wants to blow it off by getting a big juicy hamburger. He almost does it, but no, he's Michael Motivation. He white knuckles it and he makes it to the salad place and he eats his salad with a sense of self-righteousness and feels great afterwards. Good for you, Michael. Real proud. Now, let's turn the page to Wednesday. Wednesday's a bit of a weird day. People are tired. Susie actually forgot to bring her salad today. So she gets together with Michael and says, "Hey, I forgot my salad. You want to just go out to get some lunch together?" And they think, "Hey," Michael's like, "She forgot her salad. I have a good excuse too. Let's just go get a pizza. We'll split it. It'll be fun." And they're right. It was fun. They really enjoyed it. Wednesday goes on, and then we turn the page to Thursday. Thursday, Susie brings her salad, and lunchtime comes. She eats her salad like usual. Michael is out about to go to the salad place, and he sees that burger place out of the corner of his mind. You see, Michael motivation is relying on his motivation to help him make a good decision. But the motivation he most feels on this Thursday is stress and fatigue. You see, Tuesday really wiped him out, and it bled over into Wednesday for him too. Add on to the fact that eating pizza made him feel like garbage the whole day yesterday, and he's just not feeling good. His gas tank is running a little bit low. So, despite the fact that he could go to the salad place, he says, you know what? I deserve a win. I'm going to go get a burger, finally, satisfy that craving. And he does, and it tastes great. And he slogs through the rest of his day and just gets through it. Friday rolls around. By now, Susie, opening her lunch salad and eating it, has formed a habit. She's eating salad. Despite the fact that there was a bump one day, the structure in her life made it easy to get back to doing the right thing for her. Michael, though, he's well and truly off the wagon. You see, motivation's an ephemeral state. And for those of us with something like ADHD, all too ephemeral. This is the heart of abandoning motivation and embracing structure. It's changing your life to be a fortress for your intentions, to make it easy to make the right decisions. This is one of the things that really helped me. Rather than trying to change my mind, instead I focused on changing what was around me to make it easy to make the choices that I wanted. If there's a certain kind of food that if I know it's in front of me, I'm just going to annihilate it, I keep it out of the house. Okay? I just keep it out of the house. If there's something that I want to make sure I do every day, I find a way to make that choice easy to make, whether it be food or something else. If you look into ADHD research, you'll find suggestions about calendaring and lists and post-it notes, and those are all useful, and I can't gainsay them or anything. But above and beyond that kind of structure, actually changing what is in your environment can go miles. Over my left shoulder, you might see a desk with some books on it. This is a writing desk that I added to my office a few weeks ago because what I really wanted to do was to get into a better habit of thinking through things. And I sort of stumbled into the fact that taking the time to write things out with my hand slowed down my thought process enough to make me concise and really think about the words that are going out in a way I don't usually have to do when I'm doing what I'm doing now, talking into a camera or typing, which I do far too fast. So, in order to promote this, I decided to actually make a space for it, and it's really worked. Every single morning where I don't have a competing thing to do, I start my day with coffee and contemplation, a cup of coffee and journaling, writing, planning, something like that. I use that process to help me plan this very discussion, and it's working out. Now, contrast this with someone who was trying to get into the habit of writing and was simply carrying around a notebook and hoping for the right moment to strike. You might be able to find those moments, but your life is going to get stressful and it's going to change. It's going to throw you curveballs. And when that happens, you're going to need to let go of some things and make easy choices. If you buttress your life, if you create a fortress for your intentions, then even when things go to shit, it'll still be easy to make good decisions. And this is the heart of abandoning motivation and embracing structure. One last thing that I want to say about this is I want to kind of introduce the concept of the gas tank. I kind of might have mentioned this a little bit earlier. In my example with Michael and Susie, one of the things you saw is Michael having to draw down heavily from his inner gas tank to decide. This is sort of the flaw in his setup. He was setting himself up to have to use a lot of gas. Now, this is a concept in ADHD. I learned about this from a clinical psychologist named Dr. Russell Barkley. And the gas tank is what you have to use in order to make decisions. We all know we live in a life where a lot of tiny decisions add up during your day. And the more tired you are, the worse decisions you're going to make. Now, if you set up your life to only have the things that are good for you in it and take the things that are bad for you and keep them off stage somewhere, then we don't have to burn so many internal resources to make that right choice. You remember on Tuesday when Michael had that really stressful day, but he still went to go get that salad? Michael had to spend his gas tank to get that. And clearly, when he came back on Wednesday, he was a little more burnt up because of it. On the other hand, Susie set up her week so that making the decision to eat those salads and do the right thing used a very small amount of gas. She wielded her inspiration to, on the weekends, make an investment in her weekly structure. And that set her up so that every single day at lunch, with only a very small amount of gas, just the amount to pull her salad out of her bag and get her dressing or fork or whatever she needed, you know, which is a lot less work than showing up in your car at a in the middle of a dozen restaurants and trying to pick the one that you should pick. So, the gas tank is something that both you spend in order to make decisions. It's also something that you can fill up. And this is also a key concept of ADHD. But save that one for later. That's lesson one. Lesson two: don't do things you hate. Live for today. This one's about avoiding the tyranny of the self, about dodging the condition of having set ourselves on a course of doing things that we hate to get things that we want. The consequence? Failure. Sure, we may be able to gut through some stuff to get our results to achieve the big picture vision we have, but as a strategy of life change over time and at scale, gutting through things tends to fail. Because if we populate our workspaces, our schedules, our cars, our refrigerators with a bunch of stuff we don't like and want to avoid to get the things that we want, over time, in general, we will tend to avoid those things. When we avoid the structures that we've created for ourselves, when we step out of our fortress of intentions, what happens? We regress. We go back to old habits. It's like in our little example of Susie, who was doing so well in week one with her pre made salads. Let's say she's harboring a dark secret, which is that she actually doesn't like salads. She's never had one she's liked. She hates them. And so when it comes time to meal prep for week two, she can't make herself do it again. Without an alternative strategy, having set all of her hopes and energy into this one structure that she just chooses to avoid, she regresses. She goes back to eating the junk for lunch that she's used to and slips back. Okay, that should be hopefully pretty straightforward and easy to understand. What's a little more subtle and difficult to understand is the alternative. What is the alternative to doing things that you hate? Now, logically, it may sound like indulgence is the opposite, but living for today is not about indulgence. Instead, it's about a devoted and developed recognition of the positive payoffs of our good habits on the day that they happen. Let me explain by giving an example. Lunch salads. I chose this example with Susie and Michael because I've iterated over my own lunch habits for a lot over the years. What I've settled at today is a very simple salad that I pre make on the weekend of baby spinach, pre cooked chicken, and chopped up red bell peppers with a balsamic vinaigrette. That's it. It's not a thrilling salad, it's not an exciting salad, but what it is something that, after having had salads and tried a whole bunch of them over the years, what I've found and realized is that when I eat this salad, when I have a little bit of salad with a little bit of chicken in it, that I feel really good in the afternoons. I feel focused. I don't feel like my energy is drained. I don't feel like I'm dreading the work and slogging through to the end of the day. I feel light and alert. I love that feeling. It took a long time to cultivate that feeling, to understand what I needed to develop the habit. But once I got there, I'm now in a place where when I don't get my lunch salad, I miss it. I feel icky and I think, ugh, I wish I'd gotten my salad. Looking forward to tomorrow when I can get back to that. That's the place you want to be in when you think about living for today, not self indulgence. Developing your good habits so that you like them and miss them when you don't do them. Another example. So we just talked about lunch salads, but another great habit that I've been really good about is going for walks. Okay. Now, for medical reasons, I don't do heavier workouts. Not really that important. I talk about it some other time. But I love going for walks. Okay. At first, this was just an obligation, a duty. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go for a walk and just set the timer, and you just go, you pound it out, and when you're done, you're done. But over time, having spent time walking, really been patient with the habit and not pushing myself too hard in it. What I've developed is a fine sense of appreciation for getting out and feeling the wind on my face, getting the sun in my eyes, having the space to think, let my thoughts roam a little bit. You know, the little subtle endorphin rush you get after you've been at it for 20 minutes or so. And when I don't get a walk in during the day, I sorely miss it. I'm living for today when I want to go for a walk. When I talk about wanting to go, I'm not fooling myself to do something that I hate. Instead, I've developed the habit to a point where I really like it and miss it. And this isn't a cope. This isn't me fooling myself. I actually like these things. So, another kind of like take on this. If we think about like some folks we'll see on social media who make a real image out of doing hard things. Like I'm thinking about like David Goggins. I'm thinking about like Jocko Willink, those guys. Getting up at 5 a.m., running 12 miles as soon as you wake up, working out, and doing all this stuff that they do that is hard and difficult. There's something that they tend not to say when they go through their daily habits, which is to not say what they're getting out of these things. Sure, there's a long-term goal of looking shredded, being healthy, being physically dangerous perhaps, but what they don't talk about is the little payoffs that happen on the day that they do those habits, the day they go for the 12-mile run, the day they get up at 5 a.m., and why they miss it if they don't do it. That's the sense we must cultivate and the habits we choose to build our lives around. And that is the point of this lesson, to live for today with the things that you choose to build your fortress of intentions with. Don't do things you hate. Live for today. Lesson 3: don't quit your bad habits, compete with them. This is a fun one, and I'm going to start with an example from my own life to illustrate the point. So, one of the big problems that I needed to solve in order to actually make ground on my goal of losing weight and getting over my obesity, getting back in shape, not dying in my 40s, all that good stuff, was I needed to figure out how to not binge eat after dark. It's a hard feeling to describe, but it's like you get to the end of your day and there's no more chance to make anything of the day. It's like it is what it is. It's done. You're low on energy. It's hard to make good decisions because you spent the whole day using your gas tank to make decisions. Now all that's left is time that's meant to be for you, only you can't think of what to do. And food is always there. This has been such a demon for me that even the my best tactic of controlling my food impulses, of keeping stuff out of the house hasn't worked. I'll go out and get it at night if that's what I need to do to get my fix. But around a year ago, I stumbled on a way of addressing this that really, really worked. Rather than focusing on not eating at night, I instead focused on doing something specific at night that ended up competing with that eating habit. And what was that? Streaming. As a creator who's done a lot of games content, streaming is kind of a natural thing for me to do. And I kind of like it. I like being on a stage. I like interacting with people. It's really fun. And what I found is that when I stream at night, after dark, during the hours I would normally be tempted to go binge eat, streaming kept me focused, it kept me social, and it gave me an incentive to not scarf down food because I'm on camera and eating on camera is weird. And this has worked miracles for me. It's been really interesting because as time has gone on, I've become less dependent on this competition. I've actually just gotten out of the habit of eating at night. And generally speaking, I intermittently fast like about 12 hours a day. Nothing heroic, believe me. But it's enough. and it makes me feel good and it sets me up well for the next day. So, the lesson: don't quit your bad habits. Don't try to not do the things that don't work for you, that are bad for you, that are hurting you. Instead, think about things you can introduce that will compete with those things and give you something else to chew on. This is alluding to the fact that filling our life with a negative space is sort of an illusion. What's the thing that happens in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? People who are trying to quit one of the worst habits around, which is alcoholic overindulgence, alcohol addiction. One of the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous is to have a higher power. Literally, they introduce something that competes with the urge to drink. This is, I think, one of the most powerful lessons that we can wield when trying to deal with our bad habits, especially for those of us who are overweight and struggling with food and have to eat. We can't just not eat, right? We have to eat something to live. Also, gamers who are chasing something they may know not what. I know I certainly haven't, and find it dominating their lives and taking things in a really sad direction. Don't quit your bad habits. Compete with them. Going back to our example that we've worked with over these last few lessons with Susie and Michael. Okay. So in week one, Susie set up a great habit. She was pre making salads at home, bringing them in. That made it easy for her to make the right choice, to do the thing that got her her goal of getting on top of her lunch routine, her lunch food. Um, Week two, it fell apart for her, right? Because she couldn't sustain the intention of eating salads when she didn't like salads. For her, salads were blah, and she was fooling herself into trying to do this. She wasn't living for today. Let's look at week three for Susie. It's the weekend, and she's trying to think about what to do differently. She thinks to herself, well, maybe salads was a little too much for me, but perhaps I can do something else that, even though it's not as good as salads, would be better than just going out and eating junk at restaurants, eating pizza, eating burgers, whatever. And so she decides to make some bangin' sandwiches. She makes them dry on the weekend, a little turkey, maybe a little bacon, maybe some, a really good cheese that complements it, and sets the wet ingredients on the side. Maybe she brings them into work and stores them in the fridge. Maybe a little mayo, a little mustard, maybe a little Thousand Highland or a vinaigrette or something. Some really crispy lettuce that she adds in. And she creates this habit of having these amazing sandwiches and looking forward to those. She doesn't feel at all tempted to go out and get that burger, to go out and get that pizza, because the sandwiches are so good. They're not as good as a salad, but that's okay. The idea of competing with your bad habits is also about the clarity of not competing with other people's habits, but competing with your existing bad habits and being honest with yourself about what it is you actually do and what would actually be an improvement over what you actually do, abandoning what others do. When we compete with other people's habits, it puts us in an awful position that we want to avoid. And I'm going to say more about that in the next lesson. But this one is about competition. Don't quit your bad habits, for crying out loud. Compete with them. Do something else cool that you like, that is better for you than what you were doing before, and see if you can make yourself excited about that instead of doing the other thing that's terrible for you. Drink some sugary soda instead of going to get that beer. Have a sandwich instead of a burger. There's all kinds of things we can do to pursue our goals with this lesson in mind. Um, Pretty fun one. I like this one. Don't forget it. Don't quit your bad habits. Compete with them. Lesson 4. Be boring, think small. This lesson is about avoiding the seduction of a big, flashy change, of getting really excited about seeing something in a video or an article or whatever and thinking to ourselves, yeah, I could do that. If only I had this, then I could do that and all my problems would be solved. It would be easy for me to change my life. It's about not being seduced by that idea. It's for those of us who have exercise equipment collecting dust in a closet, in a back bedroom, in a basement. For those of us who have tried on the habits that we see other people executing by taking the ephemera of their life, either real or imagined, as in a commercial, and bringing it into ours. And when we take a bunch of other people's stuff and bring it into our life, what we find out is like, oh, it's like doesn't actually fit in with the rest of my life. Why? Because the change wasn't small enough. You see, when we focus on large changes, what we're doing is keeping our gaze external. We're being results focused. When we focus ourselves on small things, we're focused on what is actually part of our life today, what we can actually do today, what is actually within our control. And the difference between focusing on life change that is within your control versus focusing on life change that is in the control of other people with other lives is enormous. A couple of small examples from my own life. Walking. So, it was really hard for me to bootstrap myself back into a walking habit a few years ago. It was really hard. I was in pain every second I was on my feet, and there was no obvious place for me to walk. There was a park about a mile away from my house, but that was too far for me to go, frankly. So, what I did as a compromise was I started walking to the grocery store on the corner. I'd walk there, have a rest, buy myself a diet soda as a treat, and then walk back. One day, going to do this, it's raining cats and dogs. I can't walk in that. But I'm in the parking garage and I'm looking out and I'm thinking to myself, shit, what am I going to do? I decide to start walking around the garage doing laps. As I'm going, I'm realizing, it can never rain in a parking garage. There's no hills, and a parking garage is perfectly flat. And it's actually pretty quiet during the day. Not a lot of cars going around. And most importantly, it's 30 seconds from my front door. It also has another benefit because it's a small garage and I have to do laps to get in the full like 25 minutes I'm targeting. Then I have to do laps, and if I need to do less time because I'm either in too much pain or because I don't have enough time, I can just do fewer laps. All of a sudden, I had this very small, unsexy change in my life that I was able to start doing that day. Didn't have to buy anything, didn't have to change anything about what I was doing. I just had a small redirection, and it worked. I iterated on that habit. I made small changes. I would add laps, I would change stuff. Eventually, we moved, and I had to take that habit and represent it in our new place. So, what did I do? I started walking around the cul de sac outside of our house. Unsexy, not what you'd want to brag about. It's not walking through the park. It's not going on hiking trails. It's not going to the gym and making a big scene of yourself. Just walking around the neighborhood, stopping and saying hey to the neighbors, avoiding the trash cans and the cars. But it works for me. Small changes based in your current life that you have control over are going to take you a lot further than big dramatic ones. To illustrate, maybe I can talk a little bit more about Susie and Michael. Okay, our favorite examples, our favorite fictional people. So Susie is now going into her fourth week, right? She's got this awesome pre-made sandwiches she's bringing into work for her lunches, and she likes them. And now she's starting to get in the habit of thinking about small changes. She thinks to herself, well, I typically drink a sugary soda with my lunch. That's what I used to do when I would go out and get burgers and pizza and was just focusing on something indulgent and for the short term. Maybe I can improve this habit a little bit by drinking water with my sandwich. And if I want a sugary drink, I can have it later, but don't make it a predetermined thing. Okay, that's a good small change. And she was able to make it. From there, okay, what's the next small change? Well, I get a break from work in the middle of the morning, in the middle of the afternoon, and right now I'm using it by sitting at my desk and scrolling social media on my phone. What can I do instead of that? Well, there's a walking area outside the business, but to be honest, I feel a little uncomfortable in my clothes. I don't really want to be seen, so maybe it's not very practical for me to go for a walk just yet, but maybe I can do something other than scrolling social media. This is exactly the situation I found myself in recently with social media, trying to cut down on the amount of mindless scrolling I did during the day. I actually recharged my old Kindle, which is a book reading device, and started unearthing my old collection of sci-fi and fantasy. Stuff that is a really enjoyable hobby of the past that I basically let go of when I got into social media. And it's been a relief to come back, to free my mind up from the chaos of all the social media threads and tweets and videos and everything else, and just indulge with one person's vision, one person's line of thinking with a book. It's not as good as going out for a walk, but it is something, and it is a small change that I can make today with what I have. So, say Susie starts reading her book. Okay. Now she's reading her book instead of scrolling social media. Now she's drinking water instead of having sugary drinks at lunch. And the small habits just keep adding up for her over time. The small wins. And they tend to reinforce each other. Doing well in one part of your life makes it easier to do well in another part of your life. This is what I've experienced. Compare this with our buddy Michael. Michael Motivation. Michael Motivation. Oh boy. What's he up to this week? Well, you see, Michael Motivation has gotten the idea that what he really needs to be successful in eating salads, what he really, really needs is for the workplace that they work at to start paying for a salad bar on premise. And so what does he do? He goes around to all his coworkers, puts together a petition, brings it to the leadership, and says, "Hey, I'm really trying to improve my life. A lot of my coworkers want to be healthy and do the same. Help us promote our health and our workplace enjoyment with a salad bar here at the office." What Michael's doing is he's putting control of his life and his good habits in someone else's hands. And he's not focusing on something small, he's focusing on something big and flashy. Now, if this comes through, great. That's actually pretty cool. It's not maybe not even a bad idea to try. But the fact that he's relying on it means that in the highly likely event that it doesn't come through, that the office is like, we're not doing this. This is too expensive. Um, that he has no fallback plan. He's not focused on he's in control of. He's focused on a big picture vision borrowed from elsewhere. So, be boring. Don't be flashy. Ignore that piece of exercise equipment you see online. Go to your parking garage and go for a walk. Pick up a book instead of social media. Don't try to do the heroic thing. Don't try to impress yourself with an image of change. Instead, make small changes that are in your reach today, that are in your power to do, and which you would be able to tolerate. That's the wisdom of being boring and thinking small. And that's the fourth lesson. Concluding thoughts. I hope that you will have found at least one of these four lessons useful in your life to help you get unstuck from whatever it is you're facing. I want to offer, for those folks who've watched this video and feel that they might have ADHD, a bit of advice. Get diagnosed if you think you have ADHD. It's going to open up a world of help to you, and it's better to know. If you don't have it, you'll also want to know that. Additionally, if you do have ADHD and you've been prescribed medication, I want to encourage you to try it. ADHD is a disorder that responds remarkably well to medication for most people. And I can speak from experience in saying that doing ADHD off medication is like doing it on hard mode without getting any greater rewards. I don't recommend it. What else? Um, my philosophy of sharing this with you is based on the notion that I think the world would be a better place if I was a better person and was chasing the things that were important to me. I think the world would be a better place if you did that too. You know, I've spent so many years being stuck in life, so many years being stuck in the mud, being overweight, being addicted to gaming, that it was impossible for so long to see what value I could have, what use I would have. Why does the world need me? It took a lot of work and time and thought, but eventually I became convinced of this. The world does need us. The world would be a better place if we chased our unique purpose and made ourselves better along the way. I share this with that spirit, and I will say in full honesty that I'm so excited to see what you will do, with or without my help. Let's get unstuck together. If you want to go on the journey with me, throw me a sub. If you like this, throw me a like. If neither, thanks for listening. Till next time, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and I'll see you very soon.